Hi Sadie, this is Mrs. Wismer, and I was just thinking that before we Skyped together today, I would like you to watch this little presentation on the material that we will be covering this week in your assignments. And one of the first things that Shirley Grammer wants us to talk about is getting organized. And you will find in your reference section of your workbook a lot of instructions about getting organized. Well, while I believe in getting organized is a good idea, I don't think you need to follow every single thing they have you do, because I know that you already have a routine with your family, and I don't want you to have to change that. I want you to be able to fit this class into your routine and not fit your family into the class or your routine into this class. At the same time, I would like to talk a little bit about getting organized, because for a 10-year-old in 5th grade, getting organized can sometimes mean having to juggle a whole lot of things. So let's look at what some of those things might be that you have to juggle as a 10-year-old. One of them, of course, is going to be your studies. You have to get your homework done. And I suppose your parents give you work to do around the house, so you have chores to do. And you have siblings to spend time with, and I have a hunch that you don't have a problem with that one, that you do enjoy your siblings and you have a good time together. I don't know if you take music lessons or dance or art or anything like that, but if you do, of course you have to practice. Do you have a pet? We do at our house. We have a cat. If you have a pet, then your pet needs some attention too. And that's another thing that you get to juggle. Do you have any hobbies? Perhaps you do. I don't know what they are, but I hope as I get better acquainted with you, I will learn about those. Now there's one more space on this picture, and it is for the most important thing that you need to juggle in your life, and that, of course, is your Bible reading and prayer time that you spend with the Lord each day. Well, one of those things was getting our studies done, wasn't it, that we need to juggle. And good study skills don't just happen. They take 3 things to make them work. One of them is time. It takes time to develop good study habits. It doesn't happen overnight, and we have to try and fail and try again until we can come up with just the right routine that will help us get our studying done. The second thing has to do with that little dog holding a great big bone. What do you think that stands for? Well, if you think determination, you are correct. In order to develop good study skills, we need to be determined to do it, just like that little dog. And then finally, we have to just practice. We just have to try different routines, try different times of day that you might set aside for studying until you find just the right thing for you. But you know, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. Nobody has more time than anyone else, but we have to decide how we're going to spend that time. And the best way to decide that is to set some goals for yourself. There are 2 kinds of goals to set. One kind is short-term goals, and the other is long-term goals. Now let's talk just a little bit about what kind of things might fall into each of these categories. Well, here are some just ideas for short-term goals. You might find that just making a daily schedule is something that you have to do in order to set short-term goals. Or just making the schedule might be the goal. You might want to earn some spending money. That is a short-term goal. You might set aside time for study, or learn the catechism, or write thank you notes, or learn to sew, or pick up and organize your room. That's a goal that you might have just within a few days or a few weeks. You might be at the age where it's time to master all the states and their capitals. That's a short-term goal. Or memorize all the presidents, or bake cookies for a party. Those are just short-term goals that you can do within a few hours or within a few days. So what do long-term goals look like? Well, here are some long-term goals that you can't just do overnight or do tomorrow. Learning to drive. How about win a scholarship to college? That would be a good long-term goal. Earn a degree in college. Get married. That's a very long-term goal. You're not quite ready for that, are you? Travel through Europe. Write a novel. Own and manage a restaurant chain. Build a computer from scratch. Build a house. Buy a car. Wow, those are big things, aren't they? And they're called long-term goals because, for one thing, most of these cost a lot of money to do, or they just take a lot of time, or they take a lot of skill. And sometimes it takes a lifetime of developing a skill in order to meet one of those long-term goals. But the point of all of this is that you're setting some sort of goal for yourself. Well, one of the goals that is set for you in the Shirley Grammar is that of learning new vocabulary. So let's look at the tools that you will use for writing, and those tools are words, just straight words. Some words are hard, some words are easy, some are long, some are short, but we're going to learn some new words. And we're going to look, first of all, when you're looking at this list of words, at the synonyms for the words and the antonyms. A synonym is a word that has a similar meaning or it means almost the same thing as another word. An antonym is a word that has the opposite meaning of another word. And I'm sure you probably already are aware of these definitions, but we're going to be using them as we learn new words. And I've sent to your mom to have printed out a page that looks just like this. In fact, you have 2 pages of words this week. You have 8 words altogether. And if you do 2 words a day, beginning on Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday, then Friday, you'll have all 8 words done. And I've actually done the first one for you right here on this slide so that you can see what I'm expecting you to do on all the other words. You can come back to this and you can study it a little bit more later. Well, once we learn words, we put them together to make sentences. And we know that words make sentences, but we want to ask what kinds of words make a sentence. Well, you're going to be learning a jingle this week, the sentence jingle. And it goes like this. A sentence is complete when 5 simple rules it meets. It has a subject, and a verb. It makes sense with every word. Add a capital letter, and an end mark. Now we're finished, and aren't we smart? Now our sentence has all its parts. Remember, subject, verb, complete sense, capital letter, and an end mark too. That's what a sentence is all about. That is the jingle that you'll be learning this week. Another thing that I would like you to start on is what we call the question and answer flow. As we learn our parts of speech in Shirley Grammar, we're going to be reading sentences out loud, and we're going to be asking a series of questions out loud and answering those questions out loud. And we'll be dissecting sentences in this way. Let's take just a 2-word sentence. Spiders dangled. I am going to show you now how the question and answer flow would work. Spiders dangled. What dangled? Spiders. Subject, noun. What's being said about spiders? Spiders dangled. Verb. Now you may have noticed that the SN went above the word spiders and the V went above the word dangled at the right time. And as we do these later on, as we get going with them, I will need you to have a pen or a pencil handy, and you will actually write the SN and the V and a bunch of other things over the words as we dissect our sentences together. Let's do another one. This one says, Lady glanced. Excuse me for coughing. Lady glanced. Who glanced? Lady, subject, noun. What's being said about lady? Lady glanced, verb. Let's do one more together. Demonstrators screamed. Who screamed? Demonstrators, subject, noun. What's being said about demonstrators? Demonstrators screamed, verb. Now this is very easy because this is just the beginning, but what I want you to see is the basic sentence is only a subject noun, and a verb. That is what every sentence boils down to. Now we will add a bunch of other words, won't we? Adjectives and adverbs and prepositions and all those things. But for now, I just want you to see this is how we will start our question and answer flow. Now, we're almost done here, but I just want to talk about one more thing that you will have to do this week in your assignments, and that is to identify the different types of sentences. And each of these types has an abbreviation. And what you have here on the screen are the abbreviations, and let's see what goes with them. D stands for a declarative sentence, and a declarative sentence just simply states a fact. The chair broke. Period. The chair broke. That's just a fact. You're just declaring it. IMP is short for imperative. An imperative is another word for command. If your mother says to you, put your clothes away, that is a command. That is an imperative. INT, that is an interrogative. Have you ever heard of the word interrogate? Lawyers often interrogate people on the stand in a courtroom. That just simply means to ask them lots of questions. So an interrogative statement or an interrogative sentence is the same thing as a question. How old did you say you were? Question mark. That is an interrogative. And finally, the E stands for exclamatory. And an exclamatory sentence will always end with an exclamation mark. Now, you will have some sentences to write this week and to identify as exclamatory and interrogative and declarative and all that kind of thing. But you will also have a writing assignment, and I would like you to write just a simple 6-sentence paragraph on living in Rochester, New York. You don't have to go into tons of detail. I just want it to be very general. But if you're not quite sure what to write, just ask yourself some of these questions. Who, what, when, where, how, and why. You might answer, who lives in Rochester? You and your family. Where in Rochester do you live? Do you live in the center of the city? Do you live close to your daddy's work? Do you live on the north, the south, the east, the west? Do you live near some interesting landmark in Rochester? What do you do in Rochester? What does your daddy do in Rochester? Why did you move to Rochester? When did you move to Rochester? And how did you get there? Did you fly? Did you ride in the car? You can answer any or all or just a few of these questions, but the point of the questions is just to help you think about what you might write. Because sometimes that's the hardest thing for kids is, I don't know what to write. Well, I'm giving you a topic, and I'm giving you very basic questions to answer. And if you answered each of these questions, guess what? You would have 6 sentences, wouldn't you? And you would have your paragraph. So I'll let you choose which ones you want to answer and how much detail you would like to go into with each one. But write me a paragraph.